Maqasidic Tafsir.
Where should I begin when I'm starting at the end? Pursuing the higher aim, learning the meaning of every page. Where should I begin when I'm starting at the end?
Assalamu alaikum. Sunnahfollowers presents a new class, the Maqasidic Tafsir, being taught and brought to you by Ustada Layla Nashiba. Please stay tuned, streaming on all major platforms, right here on channel Sunnahfollowers.
Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. I want to welcome everybody to our class, the Maqasidic Tafsir. And this is our class where, as we're studying the science of the Quran, we're focusing in on how to get the best benefit from the Quran. And we've talked about how, let me just ask a couple of questions just to see if everybody is up, getting the main point of what we're trying to convey in this book. Each chapter of the Quran has its own topic or subject. Is that statement true or false? Each chapter of the Quran has its own subject or topic. Is that statement true or false? What do you guys think?
Say true. I'd say true.
Good job. It's true. And I want you guys, how many of you, when you read the Quran now, you like, if you're going to read a surah, how many of you say, wow, now let me try to figure out what the chapter is? I mean, what the topic is. That's what you guys should be doing. When you read the Quran, like say, for example, you want to read Surah Baqarah, which is the surah of the cow. It's got a topic. It's a topic involved. How many of you, when you read it, you try to figure out what the topic is? That's what you should do. What subject matter is Allah speaking about? What is the topic of this surah? That's what you guys should be doing every time you read the Quran. Now, don't just sit there and go through all that tajweed and don't know what you're talking about. When you read the interpretation of the meaning, try to figure out what the subject or the topic of that surah is all about. Okay? What about this? True or false? Every verse in the chapter relates to whatever the subject matter is. Is that statement true or false? Every verse or sentence in that chapter relates to whatever the topic of that chapter is. Is that statement true or false?
True.
Everybody agree with
False.
her? Okay, good job. This is false. Why is it false, Mina?
Because it's the connect activity, you have to connect it to different ones. So when you're reading the Quran, you have to read the first one and the second one to be able to understand what it's doing. But it's false because that what's in that Quran could be leading to something else.
Okay, I know
Right.
what you're saying, but yes, yeah, you got the answer, but you're having a hard time expressing it. Anybody? But good job. I know what you're trying to say. You got the answer, but it's just not worded well. Anybody else? Why is that statement false? Why is it that I cannot say that every single sentence in that chapter relates to the topic? Good job, Edward. Edward said, because we talked about. What is this? Okay, yes, I know what you're saying too. Yes, let me reword it for both of y'all. Yes, we talked about how for those verses in that chapter that do not relate to the subject matter or do not appear to relate to the subject matter to us, there may be a meaning there from a law that we don't know about. Remember that, Mina?
Yeah, I was just
That's when you and Edward both. That's what y'all both trying to say it, but got it twisted up. Exactly. But good job, because I know that both of you you were trying to do it right. Yeah. So if you do read, and that's what I want you guys to do from now on. When you're reading, like take a surah. Take, for example, Surah Nisa or Surah Nur. It's got a topic. You start reading, try to figure out what the topic is. What is the subject matter? And then when you figure out what the subject matter is, go back and take each verse by verse, and see how that sentence relates to the topic. That's what you guys should be doing. This is how we ponder the Quran and then apply it to our lives. And if it's a verse that doesn't seem to make sense, it may not make sense to you or me, but it's there for a reason. It makes sense for another reason. And like Mina and Edward both were saying, to truly get a real good understanding of each chapter, you really have to read the chapter before it and the chapter after too, because it may be a carry-on. That's what she and Edward were trying to say too. But good job. And I want y'all to keep that in mind, because in all these classes we've had, that's the main thing I want y'all to walk away understanding. And also, like they both were saying, realize that the explanation of the Quran are the hadiths. Okay? We use the science of connectivity, because those verses, a verse in a chapter may connect to another surah, another chapter. Okay, and then the scholar has to figure out how the hadiths, how the prophet explains the meaning through the hadiths. So that's the whole science of this. And that's what we've been speaking about in this book. And we talked about this past week how during the time of the companions, they didn't have tafsir books because there wasn't a need for an explanation, because the companions lived it. They lived the revelation of the Quran. They knew what the intent was. They knew the intent behind every surah. They knew the intent behind every verse because they lived it. They knew what happened, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. But as the companions died off and their students died off, that's when the need developed. That's when the need developed after those first three generations died off. That's when the need developed for a greater understanding of the intent behind each surah, or the topic, the theme behind each surah and the verses. And that's when the Quranic Tafsir began. And we talked about how many years after the companions did the first Tafsir book appear. Can anybody remember that trivia question? How many years after them?
300.
Good job, Mina. 300 years. Good job. It wasn't until 300 years after those companions that the first Tafsir books appeared. And what is the role of the Quran interpreter? What is his role or her role basically when interpreting or explaining the meaning of the Quran to us? What's their ultimate goal? What's the ultimate goal? Can anybody remember that? That's what we, walaikum salam, Amina Antar. I hope you feeling good. Walaikum salam. It's good to see you logged on. You must be at your other daughter's house, the one with the laptop, with your iPad. Alhamdulillah. Okay, what is the ultimate, and this is what we're going to talk about today, guys. What is the role of the interpreter when interpreting or explaining or clarifying the Quran to us? What is their goal? What should they try to do? What is? Yeah, go ahead.
They should. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's it. Go ahead. I want you to. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying that they should give you the understanding that the companions had of the religion. So when they're teaching us or giving us the knowledge of it, they're giving us the knowledge of how they understood this religion.
Okay, good. That's number one. Good job, Mina. You got this. And by the way, this is summarizing everything up to page, all the first 137 pages so far. And this right here. This is all y'all have to remember. The first goal of the interpreter or the Quran explainer is to try to give you, that's the higher aim, the understanding of what Allah is saying that those original companions had. That's number one. And then number two, they should be taking the words of that Quran and helping you to do what? Why is the Quran needed in our life? Why do we need tafsir? Why do we need someone to help us to understand Allah's intent and what Allah is trying to tell us in that book?
That they would help us to choose to change to be a better person, a better Muslim.
Exactly, to make the change, to become better Muslims, and also it in turn will help us to do what? Understanding the Quran the correct way, the way those companions did. Understanding the theme, the subject matter, the meaning will help us to do what in our lives?
Implement it into our lives? Like the same with Latifah said? No? Oh.
Yeah, that's one answer. But what else? We already said that. Will help us to, why do we need to know how to implement it? Why is it important? Why is it important to implement the Quran in our lives? Why? It's common sense. Why is it that go ahead.
To help us live a better life?
Because it'll help our goal. We're searching.
Okay, we already said that. That's number one. But what's number two? What is the problem with the Muslims today? Why is Allah sending all this calamity to us? Why is it that a lot of Muslims are apostating? To improve our lives, to get close to Allah, and also if we understood the meaning of the Quran, it will impact us in our personal lives. How? It'll make us able to do what? The thing that
what Allah want us to do.
No. What I'm always preaching about every day. What I'm Maqasid. What does Maqasid mean?
To aim high.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just guessing now.
Boy, Shaitan don't want y'all to understand this stuff. He wants the Muslims to keep running around like they are. If we truly understood the Quran, the words of Allah, as those companions did, not only would we be better Muslims, not only would we be practicing our religion better and closer to Allah, but we'd be able to do what? What is it?
What is right and wrong?
No. What is it that this nation y'all can't answer? The same thing the prophet said that y'all will never get right. It'll give you the ability to do what?
To know how to please Allah.
Prophet speaks.
Around it, huh?
Now do y'all see why the prophet said that those are the pagans of our nation? We don't get it. Anytime I ask this question, nobody gets it right. Try it again. If I understood that Quran better, not only would I be a better Muslim, a better person, but I would be able to do what? What were you created for?
Worship Allah.
And what stands in the way? Why is it that most Muslims today are pagans? Why are most Muslims protesting? Why is it that most Muslims are boycotting? Y'all still don't get it.
Let me try. So with us having an understanding of the Quran and everything, then we should know that Allah is the most powerful, that we won't be able to deviate away from that. The understanding that He is the one.
Okay, yeah. The bottom line, guys, y'all need to write this down. If we understood the Quran correctly, we'd be able to handle the trials of life. What is it that the Muslims can't handle today? They can't handle the calamities. You can't handle losing your job. You freak out when you get a divorce. Your children apostate, so you apostate. You can't handle the fact that Allah sent war. You can't handle the fact that death is a part of life. The pagans of this nation are those people who refuse to accept that Allah is in control of everything. The pagans of this nation are those who do not accept the qadr of Allah. Write it down and memorize that statement, because that's the problem today. That's why Allah sent this war. That's why all this calamity is hitting us. That's why we can't handle. We don't believe in the lordship of Allah, okay, even though we say we do. But if we truly understood that Quran, the words of Allah correctly, if we understood the meaning that Allah is trying to convey to us in those chapters of the Quran, that's why I say y'all waste too much time with that Quran tajweed. You can recite the Quran with the perfect tajweed. It's not going to get you in paradise if you don't understand what you're saying and live it. Probably Shaitan probably can recite better than anybody, and he's still damned to hell. Okay? We have to learn the true meaning of the Quran and apply it, practice it. If we did that, we would believe in Allah's divinity. We'd believe in his actions of lordship, and we'd be able to handle ourselves in good times and bad times. We wouldn't point the finger blaming man. And we wouldn't point the finger saying that the power belongs to man instead of Allah. You Muslims shouldn't have been voting in no election. What the heck were you stupid American Muslims doing participating? It's haram. It's haram, and y'all going to answer to Allah for it. All of you. It's haram. You shouldn't have been participating at all. If you truly understood those verses, those words of Allah, we wouldn't make the stupid mistakes that we're making today. And then Allah wouldn't send the punishment he's sending as a result. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Whenever we deviate away from belief in Allah's actions of lordship, there will be consequences. Allah tells us that in the Quran. Everybody understand that? All right. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Again, the importance of when you sit down and read that Quran. It ain't all about Alif Lam Mim and all that singing that y'all be doing and all that perfect text and all that stuff. That ain't gonna help you if you don't know what you saying and you ain't living it. You will still get through reciting the Quran. You will pick up a flag, tie it around your body, and join the Kafirs and fight like the Kafirs, protesting the qadr of Allah. We got to learn what Allah is saying to us. That's why we need tafsir. That's why we need the Quran explained to us correctly, the way those companions understood it. That's why you are not going to find any hadiths on this planet where the companions boycotted anything, nor did they protest with signs and flags against Allah's decree, because they knew better than that garbage. They weren't kafirs. They didn't fight like kafirs. They were men and women who fought like true believers in La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. So we need tafsir. And we need men that can take and women that understand the higher meaning of those words of Allah, that can give us the guidance to take what Allah says and implement it, so we don't transgress his limits and end up bringing his punishment like you Muslims have brought today, because you transgressed his limits with your voting for non-Muslims and LGBTQ people and putting women in positions of power. All that's dumb stuff you American Muslims are doing, and European Muslims too. This is why y'all got this is why what's happening is happening, cause and effect. Keep on blaming the Zionists. The blame is on you. You did it. And we need more men and women to break it down and let you see that you did it. All right. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's how it began. 300 years after the companions, the Muslims were doing the same thing. The deviants had arisen. The same thing that you Muslims are doing today, they were doing back then, transgressing the limits of Allah. And that's when the need came for people of knowledge to break it down to them, to try to call them back to the original understanding of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, the same way that I'm trying to do here with this book written by Sheikh Kareem Abu Zayd. Okay, so let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen for today. All right. Yeah, hold on. I hope I did my PowerPoint right, because I'm telling you, I was knocked out. Okay. Oh, put it on again. Okay, everybody should be able to see. Okay, there y'all go. So today we're going to speak about the process of attaining the overall meaning of a chapter of the Quran. And that's what I want you guys to do from now on. When you're reading the Quran in the morning or on your breaks at work, when you pick a chapter, I want you guys to see if you can grasp the overall meaning of a chapter of what Allah is saying. And we're going to go over how that's done. First of all, I want you guys to remember the sole objective of this book that Sheikh Kareem Abu Zayd put together. The sole objective was to pair the overall meaning of the Quran with the means of how you and I can attain those meanings. And this connection forms a functional unity with the Quran, which other trends of explanation were reluctant to provide exclusively. And this is what we need. We need exclusive understanding in this day, in this age. History keeps repeating itself. Just like they needed it in the past when it first began, we need it today. So that's why Sheikh Kareem Abu Zayd put this book together. Listen to what Imam al-Ghazali said. He said an overall meaning-based explanation of the Quran will tell you the essence of what Allah is saying. And it'll give all other explanations, whether analytical, thematic, and external, you'll understand what they are. Now, back in Imam al-Ghazali's time, remember, that's when those books first appeared. During his time, he was an early scholar's time. Okay? They needed it because the people had started deviating, transgressing the laws, the rules, the guidelines of Allah, just like you Muslims are doing today. History just repeats itself. Listen to what Muhammad Musa said, another early scholar. He said holistic interpretations of the Quran allowed al-Ghazali to formulate compositions of specific themes that recovered the ideal Islamic moral dimensions. The people had to learn Islamic morality. They had to be reminded of what our values are, just like today. Muslims are lost today. Muslims think that the Quran can be tweaked because of society. Because you live in America, which is a non-Muslim country, which ain't no different than where the companions live. By the way, this ain't the first time a Muslim lived in a non-Muslim country. The companions migrated from Mecca to Abyssinia. Abyssinia was a non-Muslim country. It was a land of the infidels. And even when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, Medina was the land of the infidels too. So I don't know where these so-called scholars of today, I keep telling y'all it ain't none, where they get this idea. Well, there are some, I'm talking about here in America. I don't know where they get this idea that because you live in an infidel country, you can tweak Allah's book, tweak his laws, and make your own standards. So we got to get back to the basics. We got to understand that specific things will help us to recover our Islamic morals and values and identity. In a holistic sense, the Quranic subjects are presented in the form of how they correlate to the single higher meaning of the Quran. So in other words, as we talked about in previous classes, each chapter of the Quran has its own subject, but those subjects and themes connect together to give you an overall meaning of what Allah is trying to convey to us, what our purpose is in this life, why we were created, how we will end. Okay, that's why 1/3 of the Quran is Aqidah. Another third are the laws, the rules, the morals to live by. And the other third is history of what happened to those people that didn't listen and didn't learn from Allah's reminders. So the overall explanation of the Quran brings the understanding from the exterior to the core, because the meaning of the verses and the chapters constitute the heart or the focus of Allah's revelation, because they each represent a given topic. Everybody following me so far? Everybody following me so far? So each chapter, may address a topic that will help to better us as Muslims, as you all said earlier. That will also give us the laws, the rules, and guidelines to live good lives here without transgressing the limits of Allah, without giving false hope to ourselves. And again, for those surahs that don't address the subject, they are surface meanings with specific individual purposes. Am I making sense? Let me slow down and stop here. People in Zoom, are you following me?
Yeah.
Because I know, and when you read the book, it's kind of confusing. So I had to rewrite. I had to rewrite these words to make it simplified for you. Okay? So the overall meaning of the and perspective of the Quran can be a means of transforming our functions into values and our character into that which is pleasing to Allah, because the overall meaning of the Quran is mostly consistent with values and characteristics and all of that. That's that 1/3. That 1/3 of the Quran: Islamic identity, Islamic values, Islamic morals. Thou shalt not cheat. Thou shalt not steal, lie, fornicate, adulterate. Stay away from intoxicants. Don't be naked publicly. Be kind. Those are all Islamic values and qualities. And each chapter of the Quran is addressing something like that. All right? So when you have an interpreter explain that stuff to you, break those chapters down and those verses down, then you can apply the formula of that chapter into your life. And not only will you better understand your purpose, but you'll be able to handle whatever trials you are faced. And again, Muslims can't handle nothing. I got students here. I lost a few students. They used to be here all the time helping me on this website. They were brothers and they're not here because they can't handle the reality of the world today, because they don't understand the meaning of the Quran. They need somebody to break it down to them. They need somebody to explain to them what Allah is saying. They got me explaining, but I'm a woman. The brothers around here are exciting anger and hatred in them, so that these people are confused. We got people apostating from this religion. We got Muslims that's questioning the qadr of Allah, questioning Allah himself, because they're confused. They don't hear that many people trying to give them the means to remain firm and understand that Allah is in control. They got too many emotionally sick men who are playing on their emotions of anger and hatred and giving them a sense of loss of hope, making them think that the power is in the hand of man and not Allah, that the Muslims are being genocided when Allah said we'll never be genocided. Y'all see that? Maqasid. The overall meaning, the overall explanation is needed. The overall meaning: if all mankind were to come together to harm you, to genocide you, to obliterate you, they wouldn't be able to lift a finger unless Allah allows it. Muslims, y'all need to hear that. That's the reality. That's the overall meaning that Allah is trying to convey to us. But we're not hearing it. We're not listening to it. We're too busy allowing the weak Muslims to lead us to the gates of hell and despair. Wow. History really repeats itself. So, how do we go about attaining the overall meaning of a chapter? Well, the higher meaning foundation is to identify the ultimate meaning of each chapter. And then once you identify what the topic is, what the subject matter is, then you need to acquire a means to achieve the understanding of it. And how do you achieve the ultimate understanding? By breaking each sentence down word for word, using the approach that I try to get y'all to use, the analytical approach. where you look at the words, have a dictionary with you to understand the meaning of those words that Allah is trying to tell you in that surah. Okay? And this includes understanding not just the diverse meanings of each chapter, but also we have to know the period of the revelation too. When was this chapter sent down? Was this sent down in Mecca? Because remember, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent those years in Mecca trying to develop the aqidah of the Muslim. That'll let you know that this chapter has a message of aqidah in it. Y'all get me? If this surah or this chapter was sent down in Medina, now Allah is trying to enforce some laws, some rules, and some guidelines for us. And also, to understand the meaning of the chapter, you have to not only look at that, but also the circumstances that caused Allah to send that chapter down. This is where the history of Islam comes. What happened to cause Allah to send this down? What was going on with the Quraysh? What was going on with the Quraysh and the companions? What was going on with the Jews of Medina and the companions and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And then you got to pay heed to whatever parables or examples or metaphors Allah gives us too in that chapter, because he'll use examples from the people that came before us. Surah Baqarah, about a cow, examples from what the Jews did, how they killed a cow, and they thought they could get away with it, but they didn't know that Allah caused that cow's tongue to talk. That's an example. That's why another one of the reasons why it's called Al-Baqarah. Okay? Also, so these are some of the tools that you have to use to understand each chapter. And we talked about them in the first 2 chapters of this book. And that's what I want y'all to do from now on when y'all read a chapter of the Quran. If you're going to read Surah Nur or Surah Ikhlas or whatever, you know, understand, try to grasp the diverse meaning of the chapter. Look at the period that it was revealed. Look at the circumstances that caused Allah to send it down, and pay attention to the parables and stories mentioned in that chapter. And then after that, that's when you take all that you've gathered and learned from that subject matter of that chapter and figure out how to apply it to what's happening in the world today, what's happening in your life today. How can this topic be applied today? The Jews, they were told not to bother that cow, but they killed it anyway and thought they could get away with it. But Allah made the tongue talk. How can that apply to today? Look at how many Muslims today, right here in America, are doing all kind of bad things. We got children being sexually molested. We got sex going on in the masjids here. Women and men who are not married to each other having sex out of wedlock. And they've been getting away with it for years. And they thought that they were exempt from being exposed. But now look how Allah is causing the phone to talk. Your cell phone. Your wife picks up your cell phone and she finds videos of a naked child. Your son picks up your cell phone and finds messages from you and a man on Facebook. So that's how I can compare the story of the cow from Baqarah and apply it to today. Y'all see that? That's Maqasidic. And that's the job of the true scholar of the Quran today. But how many brothers are doing that? Do y'all know any brothers doing that? No. 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 But this is why there's a need for it. When it started 300 years after the companions, that's what those men like Ghazali and others did. They took the words of Allah and made the people think. Why are the Mongols attacking you? Why are we at war with the Mongols? Why are we at war with these people? Because we're doing the same thing that the people did here in this chapter. Y'all see that? That's how we benefit from the Quran. And the absence of this type of explanation, what happens? It results in deficiency. It results in an intellectual vacuum, which is replaced with desire. People twisting the Quran, the words of Allah around to suit their desires, their likes, their needs. People changing, like the brothers in Texas, changing, they call themselves scholars, changing the meaning of Allah's words to say it's okay to support LGBTQ. It's okay to vote in elections when Allah is clear. Allah got numerous verses saying that the non-Muslims will never have our interests at heart. But these brothers just totally, disobeyed that, which is why Allah getting ready to send some wrath on us here. So that's how you benefit. That's how you attain the overall meaning. When y'all read it, that's why the prophet said, ponder. When you read the Quran, ponder the meaning. Think about how what Allah is saying applies to you in your personal life, applies to us Muslims today as a nation. That's what we're supposed to do. How does Baqarah apply to us as a nation today? How does El-Nur? We got Muslim women who are dressed but still naked. We got Muslim women who have taken over the gender roles of men. We got Muslim women working, Muslim women running for Congress, Muslim women in offices they shouldn't hold, sitting on executive boards in the masjids. The light. Where's the light of Allah? Where's the light of Islam? That's another example. So each chapter, when y'all read it, you break it down sentence by sentence as to how it relates to today. Okay? And that's the job of the Quran interpreter. That's his job, to identify the higher meanings of each surah of the Quran and how we understand it, how it was sent down. What happened to cause Allah to say this? What did the companions do? How did the prophets react when Allah sent this down? And then it's his job to get us to relate it to what we're facing today. But like I said, we don't get no brothers doing that. Okay? We have to also remember that one verse or one sentence of the Quran can carry a single higher meaning or more. One sentence can have one or two or more meanings. An interpretation of that meaning found in one verse can also be one aspect of another higher meaning in another surah or another verse. For example, let's take a look at the second verse of the Surah Baqarah. Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning, this is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those who are conscious of Allah. This verse indicates that constituting a guide is one of the objectives of the Quran. That's one of the objectives of the Quran, for us to see that it's a guide to us, to how to live our lives, to how to better ourselves. And also this verse means that the guidance is perfect and there can be no doubt about it. In other words, what Allah says, there's no doubt about it. So how can you brothers in Texas believe that you can tweak Allah's laws? You can tweak Allah's guidance to fit today, because this is another land of the infidels. It ain't no different than Abyssinia. It ain't no different than Yemen was. It ain't no different than Mecca was or Medina. But because you're stupid, you want to say it's different. So because it's different, we can tweak Allah's laws and go out and vote for kafirs and put on our Facebook pages pictures of us hugging up to men who you didn't even know was a transgender woman. And you telling people to go out and vote for the president of the LGBTQ community. If you understood that there is no doubt in what Allah says, then you would have obeyed him. You would have never let the thought of participating in a presidential election cross your mind, like it ain't crossed mine, like it has not crossed Kareem Abu Zaid's, like it hasn't crossed Sheikh Atlee's mind. We're firm. We're firm in our belief. We know that this book has no doubt. It's the guidance for those who truly believe in Allah, and Allah speaks the truth. We don't have to say Sadaqallahu Adhim when we read it. We already know that everything in it is the truth. When Allah said that the non-believers will never give you a voice, the non-believers will never have your interests at heart. The non-believers, their desire is to cause you to perish. For those of us who believe in Allah and who are conscious of him, we believe it without a doubt. So we submit. You won't see us voting in no kafir elections. Okay? But how many of us fall in that category who are of consciousness of Allah? Most of us don't. Secondly, a group of verses in a chapter can carry a single higher meaning too. For example, all the verses of chapter Ikhlas, that's Qul Hu Allahu Ahad. Every sentence in that chapter is comprised of a single higher meaning. And that meaning is Allah is one. If you read the meaning of the sentences of Surah Ikhlas, they all are relating to the same thing, that Allah is one. He has no partners. He has no son. He is not begotten, nor does he begat or any of that. And finally, when you read a chapter, several verses can carry an identical particle of a subject that could indicate an even higher meaning, such as establishing justice, which is mentioned in different verses in different chapters of the Quran. And Sheikh Kareem gave examples here in those three chapters. So again, guys, that's how we read the Quran and ponder it. It's not about sitting there just reading in that tajweed. It's not just sitting there reading it in the English meaning and trying to change the meaning. You try to figure out, what is the theme? What is the theme of Ikhlas? The theme of Surah Ikhlas is that Allah is one. He has no partners. That's the theme. The theme of Baqarah is learn from what a cow. Learn from what them Jews learned from when they disobeyed Allah and killed that cow and thought Allah wouldn't find out. Learn what Allah meant when he said his light is encompassing. Okay? Learn what Allah said when he said women were created to be another half of you, and they have rights like you have. Learn from the story of Mary, who was the most perfect woman ever created. Learn from Solomon. Learn from Jonah.